Hey guys, how's it going? I'm Gator Mania. I was gonna go over a couple car tutorials today, or with the new buggy that came out a couple months ago. I made one already, so I was gonna go through a quick couple things and show you guys. Something to pay attention to when you're building this one is that the fact that when I had these wheels, let's see, remove it from glue group. The center is not actually the center, so I had to take the tires and then center a dummy object in there and glue them together for it to rotate from the center. Because if you just take the wheel and attach it to a rotational hinge, the pivot point won't naturally set in the center. So just to be aware of that. Anyway, I got the basic body built, suspension set up like it was intended. Now these the A-arms are separate. This is going to be independent suspension. So this is separate from the tire and the body. I guess the first thing you're going to do after everything's lined up and built is start bringing in rotational hinges. You should be able to do the whole thing with 8, or not even, yeah, 8. So go over here and get a physics hinge. Do everything with rotationals. Start on the front. Always make sure that you're set to user defined. Target 1, like I said in previous times, is that you have to make sure either way, it's target 2 needs to end up being the tire always for it to work right. Target 2 tire, and then select pivot. Go ahead and snap it. Oh, dang it, what's going on here? Alright, there we go. Go ahead and place your pivot directly in the center. That's really important. That's why that grid snap works out pretty well. Alright. That one might need some adjusting, but we'll see. So I got my rotational hinges set up to my suspension, each independent arm. So from there I need to add 2 more rotational hinges for the springs. And keep your, once again, you're going to want your target 1 to be body, target 2 to be your attached object. So the tires aren't even, but on this one, go ahead and select your pivot. You're going to place the joint where you would want the springs to be, so, or the pivot part of the spring. So then this part would be back here. Hey, come on. Go ahead and always snap it to a grid so you can get the next one over right on with it. Maybe up a little bit higher. It's way too far in. There we go. Go ahead and repeat for the next one. Hey, what's up, Rashawn? Mail, like, did you message me on here on Twitch or Twitter or? I haven't got it yet. Sorry about that, man. Anyway, go ahead and attach your other side. Do the same process and always snap it to the grid. Because I'm not working off the driving line, so. Do the same thing. Looks like things are a little off, but I don't think it's going to cause major issues. Got those set up. Those are going to be your springs. Physics are already on, so. Oh, messed up something. Hold on. Oh, yeah. I was dumb. On Twitch. Oh, you figured out the teleport problem, man? Because I was pretty much stuck where it was teleporting me once, but something was messing up in the system where it wouldn't reactivate the OPE again. What in the world is going on? But anyway, after you get those, you're gonna have to work out some issues before we activate the springs real quick. You lower my pivot point. Anyway, let's go ahead and turn the springs on and see what happens. I just keep everything rotational hinges and turn the springs on. I'm going to turn it down below that. It's around the weight of the vehicle is usually what you start with. What in the world is going on? No contact response. Yep. What's going on here? I'll have to read that message here in a little bit. I definitely want to check it out. Alright, I gotta stay focused. I'm trying to make a quick tutorial. I don't know what's going on with my pivot hinges, but hold on a second. And after you set the springs, the easiest way to use a light angular dampening tube, probably about 75 to start with. Go ahead and group these together. Oh yeah, joint strength probably a lot to do with it. There we go, maybe a little better. Maybe I need to move my rotational pivots back. Alright, probably loosen it up a little bit now. Alright. Having some issues with that one. I don't know why. Probably just gonna end up showing you, I guess it'll probably be easier just to dissect the one that I've already got finished. Let's see if we can do that. Probably a little better than... So I'm gonna raise the body up here. Pretty much... Ugh, that might be too complicated. As you can see, I have rotational hinges in here too. These bounce a little. Oh, hold on, I messed that up. When it's set up like that. Oh. Let me turn the sound off. I'll put the camera in a view where you can see it work. Probably loosen that up a bit, but as you can see, it does work independently, and I have a system set up to add camber as a suspension compresses. So, but yeah, after you get those placed, like how I placed them generally in that area right there, I did add a certain degree of limit on it. Let's see, these are the springs. I'll show you what that is. Apparently it's negative 60, which I don't know why it's that much. Joint strength 20. Spring settings 1,500 pounds. I'm actually going to loosen it up quite a bit. And then see my angular dampening, probably go ahead and take my springs down even farther. See how it acts now. A little bouncy still. That's one thing I haven't fixed in this one yet, is I don't know how to take care of the bounciness. I guess the dampening helps a lot, or stiffer springs, but I don't. Stiffer springs just makes the whole car bounce up. This is just making the tires bounce up, mostly. What's up, Blah 2123? How do I figure this stuff out, man? I just messing around, dude. For a long time. Yeah, maybe I could take the pivot point of the weight, bring it up a little bit. See if that helps. Still pretty bouncy. Alright, well, for now though, basically, just focus on the rotational hinges for now. Alright, just let you a minute ago, we had two placed on the wheel, centered, two placed for the suspension, centered at the pivot point where they should be in real life. Got those in place, those front suspension is working. Past that, you would go to the rear wheel or the back wheels. Well, now this is a different setup than I normally do for independent suspension. With the way that it is set up back here, get this out of your way. See, this piece right here is set up to run with the vehicle as far as like compression. It doesn't compress like the front suspension does. So in that instance, your pivots, you would do the same thing for the rotational hinges on the wheel. Attach this. Attach your pivot point from or your actual attachments from the tire to this, and then another rotational hinge for the suspension again. Only your pivot points on that are going to be up front because, well, that's where they would be on the car. So yeah, go ahead and set that up, and then you center that up. I guess it's important to say, as far as to actually get it, don't worry about if your pivot points or your hinges are, you know, as far as like these are, because a lot of times they'll be switched up. I wouldn't even worry about that right now. Just worry about testing and seeing if the movement's right and seeing if everything sets equal. And for now, and then when it comes to do the add power to the wheels and stuff, it'll kink that out later. Main thing right when you first build it is making sure it's centered as possible. If you go ahead and get those set up, all of it pretty much has 8 rotational hinges for everything in the as far as to get the vehicle to drive. That's all set up. Basically that, just getting that squared away and making sure it works right is important. So as far as I'm talking as the drop, as long as it drops how you would, you know, you would like it to. Stay stable. Little key tip is the rotational hinges for the motors. I didn't learn this till about 4 months ago, but the joint strength doesn't need to be 50 on this. It doesn't need to be high. Really, it doesn't need to be over like 3 or 4, because then the power is so much it just spins the wheels all the time, it seems like. So honestly, I've been keeping on like 1. It works out pretty nice. And as far as the springs go, the joints you're using as springs, I don't know, my joint strength's at like 20. I used to go 50 all the time, just thinking that was good, but honestly, it causes some problems a lot of times. Same thing for the back setup as far as the strings go. Like I said, as far as getting it to drop right, man, that's just going to be you playing with the numbers back and forth as far as your adjustment numbers. Like here, you got 2 things to take into account. Your angular settings, you have your limits that you can set to allow it only to drop. You're going to want a limit on it eventually, because once you go in the air, you're not going to want it to just drop the tires out from under you if it momentum's going with it, you know. So you want it to keep it from traveling out any farther. So and then you want the upper one to be whatever. Angular dampening is a big part in it. It's like how do I explain it in relation to real springs and shocks? Angular dampening is like I would guess the shock compressor in a car. You know, it absorbs the blow and doesn't just totally bounce it back and sends you flinging in the air. So 70 to 80 is good. Anything above that, you're gonna have issues with. Restitution, I always leave that at 100. When you go to like 0 on the extreme end, it has some extreme problems there too. But playing with the angular dampening in comparison to the spring, your angular stiffness, just go back and forth with that until you find a happy medium where it, it sits on the ground, squats a little bit, and then doesn't bounce back up. Because you want your truck to pretty much absorb most of the blows in the suspension. Something that's nice about using rotational hinges for your springs as compared to actual spring settings or springs physics hinge is that it eliminates all your front to back movement immediately. So you only want, I don't know, it works a lot better, man. It only allows, I don't know if you've seen the other vehicles, they get all crazy with the when you take off, it takes off front to back, the tire moves back and forth. With this, you don't have that problem at all. As you can see, it stays pretty solid the whole time. Alright, well, once you play with that and get that figured out, to add power, I'll just do a basic setup for you now as far as explaining it. This is a much more complex system than that, but as far as basics go, you're going to want to start out with gas controller value, which is your game variable data source. If you want to slide it over from the starts in game character speed, you want to go to gas controller value, and then just take a basic 2 input operator. Just ignore all the arrows for now, but you're going to want to link that to it. Basically, you're going to link 2 actually to it. One's going to be in charge of your speed, the other one's going to be in charge of your velocity. So basically from there, once you have 2, one's speed, one's velocity, let's say, you're going to go to your, I would start out with just rear wheel drive. You're going to go to your back rotational hinge and your angular settings, angular motor, they're already linked up, but your target velocity is going to be linked to 1, which is your higher speed, and then your max force is going to be linked to another. I'm going to tell you right now, you don't want tons of force, Start off with like 100 and see where it goes. You might end up going drastically down or just a little bit up. But link these 2 settings to your 2 target or your 2 input operators up here. And that's your basic, and from that point, you turn all your physics on, drop the car. Now you'll see, if you had, like I was saying earlier, if you have like an issue with the rotational hinge being backwards, like flipped, you'll notice it now, and then you can just grab it, and pick which one you want to be right, and then grab it and then flip it to where it's the wheels turn in the right direction. A lot of times you'll end up with them backwards. That'll pretty much get the car basically rolling straight in a straight line. So I guess the next point would be from cover how to turn. There's probably a better turning system. I haven't seen it yet or made one yet, but basically mine's like 3 points of increments, three number increments in each direction. So that's what the left I'll show you right now, the other game variable data source, which is going to be, where are you at? There we go. left stick horizontal value. Now this goes, I don't know if you guys know this, but this one goes in increments all the way from -3 all the way to +3. So that's what? So it's 3 in each direction. So that's how it inputs to the two input operator. That's the max value and the least value. The gas controller, I don't know if you know, it goes up to 7 when it's fully pressed. So that's something to keep in your mind all the time. So that's how my pretty much my wheels are turning in increments of, you can see right here, 12 degrees. So each time I go one more click over on the left horizontal stick, you know, in its calculation, it adds 12 degrees. That's not the best way to steer, and I know. I mean, I would like this. I can set up a system where it rolls through it. Only problem is getting it to come back centered when it's done. So I'm having problems with that. So to set this up though, this is the tricky part. What I was saying earlier about making sure that when you're selecting the rotational hinges for the wheels, making sure that they're target number 2. So each wheel's got to be target number 2, and whatever it's attaching to has got to be target 1 for it to work out right. But the reason why being is, let me see if I'll show you. I'll show you why. What happens is, if it's set up right and you've linked, let's show you how to link real quick though. Angular setting, go into angular settings. Okay, now the lower limit Z and upper limit Z is something entirely different. I'll show you here soon. You're going to link your lower limit Y and your upper limit Y in angular settings of those to one of these, or to this 2 input operator, you know, as far as coming directly out of the source. So that'll input that information into that. It's allowed degrees. So if you do it right, first try, you turn your wheels left, right, it'll all work out. But if you do it wrong, like if you had, I'll do it right now. I'll reattach this hinge right here backwards and show you the problem. Make target 2 the A-arm and then target 1 the wheel. Now, if you do it wrong, it'll end up a little bit like this. Not only that, but see how not only turn in the wrong direction, which you could fix that in the beginning, but you'll notice that the rotational hinge now rolls with it for some reason, so you won't be able to keep that angle when you first turn. It'll keep the angle, but it's rolling the whole axis. So a lot of people run into that trouble. I ran into it for a long time. It does funky things like that. Like I said, just that's all, and making sure that target 1 is, or target 2 is always what you're attaching to from the body. So target 2 would be the wheel. Target 1 always being whatever's closest to the body. So there you go. See that if it's right, I don't know what the deal with that is, but if it's right, it'll keep its rotation, or keep its angle, or its camber angle, and the axis will stay the same. Alright, so that's a basic setup for that, for the car. As far as, if you guys got any questions, feel free to message me. Couple things that I'll go into advanced about, I guess, past that. I mean, after you build it and you've got your basic, it can move and it can turn, then you'll want to roll into like fine-tuning things, fine-tuning the speed, fine-tuning the torque, fine-tuning how it handles. mean, you'll spend a couple hours, and you probably might not ever be happy with the way it handles, but you'll spend hours on it trying to get it tuned up properly. And that just comes down to your basic knowledge of cars as far as like how it's supposed to drive over the land, you know, how it's supposed to hit a bump, how it's supposed to take something, how the suspension's supposed to compress, you know. That all comes into play because it's a physics-based game, so generally it works out, you know. A couple things that just to keep in mind is everything handles the way if it's centered, or I guess equal to its other side. So everything needs to be pretty centered on, man. And it's pretty easy to do with that grid selection pattern, you know, where you can snap it to the grid of an object. So I guess past that point, if you noticed, I don't know if you've noticed before, but when my front wheels compress, the angle of the tires stay the same, stay flat. They don't go like riding in all the time. Like if they stayed in the angle straight off of the rotational hinge, when they compress, they would roll up and over. And I got it set up to where they compress with it. Just generally stay the same, pretty close. Be a lot less worse if it didn't have that system at all. So if you wanted something to think about when you're doing that, as to how to get that to work, is you'll be manipulating the lower limit Z and the upper limit Z, which is, I don't know if I can made this point across yet. Hold on a second. Let me. So that's the angle you're going to be working with. That allows it to stay level with the ground. So, but the system you'll be setting up is whenever, it's not that complex, it's pretty easy. Just a system of, let's see, a world distance meter, which you can find that in trigger system, distance operator, world. You'll set that up to measure. See, the way I set it up is I glued a dummy object to the body, raised it above the wheels, and then made sure it's equal on both sides. And then put a distance meter, and you can see it's 1.51. Pretty much you can see when it falls, it falls to a smaller gap. So I'm measuring that gap distance fall by, I know it's 1.51, I take a 2 input operator and go ahead and attach it to the world measurement, and I subtract 1.50, which pretty much equals, this thing is, if you can see, its output is 0.01. Or sometimes around 0.0, which is what I want. But when that thing compresses, it ends up outputting a increment number from 0 to, what's up with that? Well, anyway, when it compresses to what you need, I take that negative number and then pretty much turn it into a positive by multiplying and the positive from that link to this 2 input operator. And from there, now this is, you have to have this set up, 3 things, the world distance meter, 2 input operators, and a dummy object glued to the body, not the tire, glued to the body on each side to work this. Pretty much I take that measurement, and that's what controls the angle of this tire as it compresses or gets closer to this object. Now you have to play with that a lot. It would be really extreme or not enough, you know. But as it falls, it does that. Let's see if I can add some weight, get a response out of it. You can see that bowing out. You can see the angles changing. That is what that's directly doing, is keeping it, is adding some of that angle, camber or whatever. Past that, some basic things to look out for, like I said, is keeping away from your high joint strengths. That'll mess you up. And to make sure all this works, I guess I didn't forgot about that. For now, when you first build it, this body is, I guess it's contact response. I would advise going no contact response, honestly, on everything but the tires. And the reason why is, after it rides on the wheels and you know you're good there, then you can start adding in or start coming back and selecting certain pieces that you know won't interfere with anything and add contact response back. So, because you still want that effect when you hit something, you want to hit it. And when you roll over, you want to roll over on your top. You don't want to just fly through the ground. So, I would recommend keeping everything non-contact response, because as you can see, everything down in here, if the contact response was on, would be going haywire. It would be going all over the place. So all this stuff's non-contact, no contact, and some of the stuff on the body is so when it rolls over it actually touches. But that just saves you a lot of hassle, man. Trying to, instead of sitting there spending hours trying to figure out what exactly is interfering with it. Let me see. If you guys got any questions, let me know. I think I've covered the quick basics as far as how to set this one up. Maybe a little quick tip. A lot of this other stuff you're seeing is more advanced. I won't get into that right now. I guess I could show off my gear system the other day, because I plan on integrating a four gear system into this too. So anyway, I think that about covers that one. Covered how to do your like I said, more advanced stuff there, but I covered how to build it, how to place the hinges, and then how to get them to operate. And real quick, I'm going to show you the gear system that I had set up the other day. I just figured out. Alright, this is a semi-made. Just to end this lesson, is basically it's got a gear system. Let me turn this way down. Way too loud. Alright. Show a different camera angle. I like the semi, but I'm not a fan of that camera angle. I want you to see what's going on. Alright, basically it's a gear system set up. As you can see, first gear is limited to like 25 miles an hour, something like that. LB and RB shifts. From there you can go to second gear. Speeds up. Third gear. Fourth gear. And that one rides really smooth. But anyway, the gear system is what I'm focused on. How that works is basically the vehicle has a world speed sensor on it, or just, I guess, not a world speed sensor, just a object info data source watching the speed, and that's bringing it over here to pretty much, there's a bunch of things watching it. Well, the speed is actually just for the sound. I'm not thinking about it. But let's start with, basically I have two setups here. When I press RB and LB, I have a switch filter. Because RB and LB adds to this variable data source down here, pretty much, which is turning on and off. Not on and off, actually. It's the actual gear number system. It goes 0 or 1 through 4. So that's adding and taking away. So you gotta decrease, increase. But I have a limit set up on it by pretty much this switch filter right here is set up to where when it hits 4th gear, it shuts off the RB button. So it won't go any higher, and then when it gets to 1, it shuts off the LB button. It also turns it back on once it once it comes off of those gears. That controls that system and keeps those in check. That switch filter does. Past that point, these two switch filters, when one is my velocity or speed and one is my horsepower or torque, those switch filters are reading this number right here, which is pretty much your gear. It tells it what gears is it in. Dang, I can't talk. So it reads off of that. The speed sensor, like right here. All it is if I'm in, my case value, my comparison value is that number. If it matches 1, I'm in 1st gear. So and so on. It's like the vent target. 2nd gear, 3rd gear, 4th gear, and I've selected these over here. So in 1st gear, I'm set at 130 my velocity. Now that number right there feeds into this variable data source, which then feeds into a 2-input operator, which is also the 2-input is actually, this is the kicker. This one's the operand 1's linked to variable data source. Operand 2 is linked to my gas controller value up here. So that's the increment. That's the trick to it is. So when I'm off the gas, there's no numbers at all coming out. This will still read, no matter what's coming out, it'll still read 0. As soon as I apply my trigger, that's the second part of the equation. So then it outputs at speed. Same thing with my torque. Only this one, the torque drastically drops each time, percentage wise. Now what's going on here? Okay, there's there's the one for the torque. Max force. Same system setup. The way the sound works is, let me try to explain that. It reads off the speed sensor, takes that number. See if I can do this right. Takes that, man, that's hard to explain. This one is a little difficult. Basically, its overall goal as it function is it takes the sound, and when it changes gears, it pretty much takes a higher speed number or data unit number to, to activate the sound, as far as like what RPMs it's at. So that gives it the sound that it's actually shifting down. It restarts in a lower. That sound works out pretty nice, but I'm trying. What's up, Zergery? I'm not sure how to explain that part of it. Anyway, what time is it? 2:44. I gotta get ready to go. Basically, that's just a quick outlook on the buzzsaw, how to build that, and then a quick overlook on a gear system that I set it up. If you guys want or interested in learning more about that, let me know and I can go more advanced in a time with that this week or something, but maybe like dissect it completely and show you how to set it up. Other than that,